lot of people feel pressure to return to work sooner than they should. Sometimes it's a boss, sometimes it's coworkers, sometimes it's your own voice saying, I don't want to let people down. Are you ready to get back to what you love after knee replacement? The Total Knee Success Podcast is your trusted guide with practical tips, evidence-based strategies, and no fluff. It's not personal medical advice, just solid education to help you manage pain, regain mobility, and get back to living the life you love. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Total Knee Success Podcast. In our last episode, we talked about when it's safe to start driving again after knee replacement, and that's such a big step toward feeling independent again. Today, we're moving on to another huge milestone, and that's getting back to work. This is one of the questions I hear most often in the clinic. People ask me, when can I go back? What will I actually be able to do? Will my knee hold up all day? And what if my boss wants me back before I'm ready? These are all fair questions, and the honest answer is it's different for each person. We're going to walk through some real timelines, how job type makes a difference, what to do if you work from home, how to practice for work before you go back, and how to protect yourself from doing too much too soon. We'll also talk about the emotional side because returning to a schedule is tiring, even when things are going well. And remember, you can grab free resources at totalkneesuccess.com. Let's start with the question everybody asks. When can I get back to work? And the true answer? It depends. A colleague of mine got a t-shirt from her students that said, "It depends," across the front. If you're listening, you know who you are. This is for you. Therapists say that all the time because it's true for so many situations. And returning to work after knee replacement is one of them. For many people, with mostly desk work, about 4 to 6 weeks is a pretty realistic window to start working again. Some folks need a little longer if swelling hangs around or if they're still working on bending and straightening. But 4 to 6 weeks is a good place to start the conversation. If your job is on your feet, moving, lifting, transferring, or going up and down steps, think nursing, teaching, warehouse, construction, bus driving, you'll usually be looking more at 8 to 12 weeks before you're ready for a full return. That's because the knee isn't just healing, it's also getting used to load, to time on your feet, to carrying things, and to doing it over and over for hours. There was a 2021 review that found the average time to return to work after knee replacement was right around 9 weeks. But the range was pretty wide because job type and workplace flexibility changed things so much. That part hasn't changed. Job demands still matter. What has changed since 2020 is how people work. Because so many people now have remote or hybrid options, we're seeing people start back part-time even earlier, sometimes at 2 to 3 weeks, because they can control their setup, keep the leg up, ice, and take walking breaks. That flexibility has made a big difference. Now, if you spend most of your day at a desk, the biggest issues aren't usually strength. They're stiffness, swelling, and circulation. Keeping the leg slightly elevated can help. Even a footstool helps. Taking short movement breaks every 30 to 60 minutes is important. There's good workplace research showing that these micro breaks reduce leg swelling and stiffness and help with comfort over the day. A lot of people ask about standing desks. They can be great, but after knee replacement, it's better to alternate positions than to stand for long periods. A 2022 occupational rehab study suggested that swapping between sitting and standing in short blocks is easier on the leg than just standing for long stretches. So if you get a standing desk, build up slowly, 10 minutes, then 15, then 20. If you work from home, you can make this even easier. Set up your space so you can move between sitting, standing, and light walking. Working from home gives you the freedom to put in breaks that you might not be able to take in a traditional office, and right after surgery, that can really support healing. Let's shift to getting ready to go back, because this is the piece that a lot of people skip. About 2 to 3 weeks before the date you hope to return, start rehearsing the things you do at work. If you sit a lot, start timing how long you can sit comfortably at home. Maybe 30 minutes, then 45, then an hour. If your work requires you to stand or walk, start increasing how long you're upright around the house. If you have stairs at work, practice stairs. If you work at a computer, set up a computer at the right height. Patients who rehearse like this usually report a smoother transition and fewer setbacks. That's exactly what recent work in clinical rehabilitation and physiotherapy theory and practice has been showing. Task-specific practice before the return helps the return to go better. Here's another piece of insight from newer data. Be very consistent with your physical therapy and home exercises. That's not just a therapist's pep talk. We now have really large studies of more than 12,000 patients showing that when health systems followed a standard post-knee replacement guideline, the number of people who didn't make meaningful progress dropped from about 25% down to about 14%. And that's a big drop. That tells us that steady, guided rehab matters if you want to do a full workday without feeling wiped out. So think of the 2 to 3 weeks before you go back as your work rehearsal phase. You're not trying to pass a test. You're reminding your knee, your muscles, and honestly your brain what it feels like to be on a schedule again. Now let's talk about those of you who have physically demanding jobs. Jobs like construction, warehouse work, nursing, caring for small children, bus or truck driving. These all put more stress on the knee than a 9-to-5 desk job. Standing in one spot is actually harder on the knee than people think. Lifting and carrying adds load. Climbing into vehicles, going up bus steps, or working on uneven flooring all ask more of that operated leg, and the non-operated leg as well. Several studies have shown that people on those jobs tend to return later than people in desk jobs. One analysis in 2020 found that people in heavy jobs often needed 3 or more extra weeks before they could return safely, compared to people who sit most of the day. And people who came back on modified hours first, half days, light duty, no stairs, no heavy lifting, ended up with fewer setbacks and less time off. So if you're in a heavier job, plan on doing it in layers. First layer, return part-time. Second layer, add in more standing and more walking. Third layer, return to full duties. That's not being weak. That is being smart with a new joint. Not everyone starts from the same spot. People with diabetes or with more than one health condition often make good progress, but they can progress a little more slowly and may have more stiffness or fatigue after surgery than people without diabetes. That's what the 2021 systematic review on diabetes and total knee replacement found. Outcomes were still positive, just a bit more modest and a bit slower. That means your return to work plan may need to lean toward the longer side if that's you. Let's touch on the emotional side because this is real. A lot of people feel pressure to return to work sooner than they should. Sometimes it's a boss, sometimes it's coworkers, sometimes it's your own voice saying, I don't want to let people down. What I want you to remember is that your knee is still adapting to load, swelling, and new movement patterns during those first few months. That's not just your opinion or mine. The 2025 systematic review on function after knee replacement found that pain may settle earlier, but function continues to change over time. And some people still have trouble with daily tasks, even though their surgery was a success. So it is completely reasonable to say, I can come back, but I'll need breaks and light duty for a few weeks. Let's pause here to talk about blood clots, because going back to work usually means you're sitting more or riding in a car more. A blood clot in a leg is called deep vein thrombosis, or DVT. A clot that travels to the lungs is a pulmonary embolism, or PE. These are not common, but they are serious. With modern prevention, including medications, TED stockings, and getting you walking early, we're seeing symptomatic DVT in about 0.5 to 1% of people, and PE in about 0.3 to 0.5% after knee replacement. That's pretty low, but it's not zero. There's also newer research showing that people who go back to very sedentary work too soon, long car commutes, long meetings, long flights, or just sitting and not taking breaks, may have a slightly higher risk of clotting. That's one more reason I want you to take those walking breaks, even if you're officially back at work. If you ever notice new calf pain, calf swelling, warmth, redness, or sudden shortness of breath, get medical attention right away. Let's talk about communication with your employer. Even small adjustments, flexible hours, a place to elevate the leg, more frequent breaks, doing computer work instead of patient care, doing training or paperwork instead of lifting, can make a big difference. A 2019 study found that people who had workplace accommodations were about twice as likely to return to work successfully after joint replacement. That's huge. If your HR department or supervisor needs documentation, ask your surgeon or physical therapist. We do that all the time. Now, this story, one of my favorite return to work stories is about a bus driver I worked with. Her goal was so clear: get back behind the wheel. Her biggest problem wasn't driving. It was climbing the steps to get into the bus. At first, those steps felt like a mountain. She didn't have the strength or the confidence yet, but she practiced at home. We practiced in therapy. We worked on step-ups, hip strength, balance, and just getting comfortable shifting weight on that new knee. By about week 6 to 8, she came back and said, "I did it." She was able to climb up into the bus again, and the look on her face said everything, because for her, going back to work wasn't just about money. It was about purpose and seeing those kids on the bus again. Let's bring it home. Returning to work after knee replacement, it's a process, not a race. Desk jobs often happen around 4 to 6 weeks. Jobs that are more active usually take 8 to 12 weeks. Remote and hybrid jobs can sometimes start earlier because you can ice, move, and elevate more easily. Some people, especially people with diabetes or other health conditions, will need a little more time, and that's okay. Talk with your therapist and your surgeon and plan ahead. When you first go back, expect to be more tired. You're going from a healing routine, therapy, walks, rest, back to a schedule. That's a big jump. Give yourself permission to rest more on the days you work. Rest helps swelling, helps the joint handle load, and keeps you from getting discouraged. In our next episode, we're going to talk about why physical therapy matters so much after knee replacement and how to get the most out of every visit. And don't forget to visit totalkneesuccess.com for more resources. This podcast is for educational purposes only. Discover more at totalkneesuccess.com. And be sure to subscribe and share, because every step forward takes you closer to living the life you love.